So you want to buy a GT3, but you're not sure how much it costs to maintain every year. Well, don't worry. For you guys, I got the paperwork right here. So hey, what's up guys? So if you guys are new here, my name is Alex and this is my 911 GT3. And I bought this car over a year ago. And one question I always had before I bought this car was, how much does it really cost to maintain this car every year? Because it's one thing to be able to buy the car, but it's another thing to be able to, own, maintain, service the car, and all that other stuff. So that was one major question I had. And I'm just gonna put it all in one video and just let you guys know how much it really costs to own this car. So before I start discussing numbers and everything, I wanna give a quick disclaimer. The numbers I'll be using is from my Porsche dealership. So it should be pretty similar to the numbers across the United States for if you go to a Porsche dealership. But if you live like in Europe or somewhere, the price is gonna be different. Or you can always probably find cheaper values if you go to like a different shop. But be pretty even and equal across the board here. Alright guys, so let's start with the biggest one, which is the annual service or like oil change and all that stuff. So, you always hear a bunch of horror stories about, when you get an expensive car, a supercar or something like that, these annual services, they're going to cost thousands of dollars and whatnot. But actually for the GT3, it actually isn't that much more expensive than a regular, 911 service and whatnot. So a couple months ago, I actually did my first service for this car, and I was expecting the bill to be super big and whatnot, but actually wasn't too bad. So for the actual oil change, annual service and all that, it was actually $755 for that. And I also did a brake and fluid flush, which is, something you usually do every 2 years for this car. But since my first year of ownership, I wanted to make sure everything was in line. So I just did that anyway as well, and that was $330. So my total came out to be around $1,000 plus tax and everything. It was like $1,200. $1,200 might seem like a lot, but if you're just doing the annual service, it's honestly around like $800 probably after taxes and everything. And I honestly don't think that's that too bad, because when I had my Cayman before this, my annual service was actually around $700 as well. So considering that this car is like twice the price of that old car, and this annual service is only like $100 more, if you think about it, it's not bad at all. But one thing I do want to point out is for these cars, I believe every 2 years you have to do like a bigger service than normal, which is like, spark plugs, brake fluid flush, like I mentioned, some other things in there. Actually I have it, let me pull it up real quick. Every 2 years you got to do the spark plugs, brake fluids, air filters, intakes, all the other stuff. So that service is actually a little bit bigger, but I assume the price probably won't be too different. Maybe like $1,500 if I had to guess, but with all that stuff, but it shouldn't be too much more expensive than the annual service. This is probably the same cost as like a regular 911 to do the service, which is crazy in my opinion. I think the most expensive thing to get done in this car is probably the tires. So if you ever have to replace the tires for this car, it is not cheap, because this car runs the Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s, and those tires are not cheap at all. So a quick little story for you guys. When I first got this car, after like 2 weeks of driving, I actually got a nail in my rear tire and I had to go get it replaced. And when I got the bill for that, I was like, what the heck is that? So let me just give you guys a quick rundown of how much the tires, just the tires themselves cost. For the front tires, for one front tire, it's $450. It's $450 just for one. And for the rear tire, it's $623. And that's like the price right now. So if you take that price and then, let's say you want to get a set of 4 new tires, you're probably looking at around like what, $2,200. That's just for the tires, and that's not including like, the labor cost of all that stuff. And then, there's also the fee of like disposing the old tire. So when I first got that nail in my tire, I ended up paying like $900 just to replace one rear tire. So one more thing I wanted to bring up about the tires for this car, these wheels are center lock. So not every shop's gonna have the right tools and whatnot to take on and off the wheels for this car and replace them. So, I always go to my Porsche dealership because I know they're gonna do it and they're gonna do it the right way, which is why, the prices may be a little bit more inflated, but at least they're gonna do it right. And, it's better to be safe than sorry, I would say. So that's another quick disclaimer for that as well. If you're planning on taking this car on track and whatnot and tracking it, you're gonna go through tires really quickly. So that's something that's really gonna add up on your your yearly cost for this car. I daily this car. I have fun with it, but I don't go like too crazy on track and whatnot. Right now I've driven it for a year and I still have like 80% of my third life left. So these tires have been lasting me a good amount of time. I won't have to replace them that often unless I get unlucky again and get a nail. So the brakes. So like brake pads and stuff, replacing that. Now I've never actually replaced this on my car, but I looked at the numbers for you guys. So I got this from Suncoast Porsche. And you know, these are just the prices for the brake pads themselves. So for the front brake pads, it's $400. And then for the rear brake pads, it's $450. So that's just for the pads. So I imagine, you know, if you're heavily tracking this car and you have to replace your brake pads, you know, you're looking at quite a bit for that as well if you have to replace your brake pads a lot. But you know, if you're just driving the car like normal, you know, these brake pads and stuff, the brakes are gonna last you a long time. So that's not something you'll have to do as often, but I just wanted to give you guys these numbers just in case if you're curious. Now, if you have to replace your rotors, you're like fresh out of luck. On the prices on this website from Suncoast, so the front rotor set is $1,850 and the rear rotor set is $1,695. So, I mean, rotors isn't something you have to replace very often, but if you do, it's not fun. And this is just for like the standard non-carbon ceramic brakes. This is just the standard brakes, just so you guys know. So, you know, if you ever have to do that, you're gonna be paying quite a bill. Don't want to scare you guys off or anything. Those are like payments that you wouldn't make very often unless, you know, you're tracking the car and you have to replace your brakes and tires and whatnot a lot. So overall, in my opinion, I don't think this car is really that expensive to maintain at all. Like you're looking at maybe like $1,000 a year max, a little more than that. You know, it's like $100 a month, I would say, if you average it out. And I think that's not a bad deal at all for this car, especially if you consider the price of the car. If you look at the price of the car versus how much you're paying, like for service and stuff, it's not too bad at all. And yeah, I mean, I would say it's the same cost as any other Porsche you would buy, because you know, I've had a Cayman and my dad has a Cayenne, and when I take them to service, the prices are always around this much as well. So it's not too bad. So one last thing I did want to bring up to you guys is, you know, reliability. You know, if you're worried about like, what if something goes wrong with, you know, the GT3 and I gotta fix it. Now I will say, if something goes wrong, it's not going to be cheap. So I've actually had like 2 small issues happen with this car. One of them was a check engine light, and they had to replace my like evap system. It wasn't like a major issue, like the car was running fine. It was just like there's like a small leak in there. So they did replace that, and I think that ended up being like a $1,700 job for them. But you know, I had warranty, so I didn't have to pay for it. But it's not cheap if, you know, something goes wrong like that. And then I also had like a really small issue where like I had the LED door seals and the light wasn't lit up, but you know, so that one's really small, but I had them replace that, and I think that was like $500, $700 for that. But I didn't have to pay for that. I was under warranty. So that was pretty nice to get that done. But other than that, I haven't had any issues with this car. It's been completely reliable for me, and you know, hopefully it stays reliable like that. Well, I bought this car with 7,000 miles on it and put like 9,000 miles over the year. Over like 1 year, a little bit over a year now, and honestly, no problems whatsoever. Car's been bulletproof, which is great. Do your due diligence. Nothing you can do about it. If stuff happens, stuff happens. So that's gonna do it for this video, guys. If you have any other questions, please leave them down in the comments below. If you guys are actually interested in me, I was thinking about doing a video about talking about the cost I pay for this car. So like insurance, you know, monthly payments, you know, how I afforded this car. I'll be happy to make a video on that. I didn't want to include in this one because that's all stuff that can vary depending on your insurance, you know, your driving record, all that stuff. So I want to make more a video of just the general cost of owning a car, not the actual, you know, how much you're paying for the car over time. But that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. You know, hit that like button. Don't forget to that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.